Hi everybody, Armoured Pants here and welcome back on channel. Today's video I think should be very interesting because we're going to look at what is the best tank line in Blitz to play. And obviously that's an oft asked question, a question that's been asked to me many times by many Blitzers. So I thought I'd get around to answering it in a video. Now I also want to kind of preface this by saying that this is aimed at new players, but also aimed at players who are experienced but want to improve their win rate, and also then aim maybe at really experienced players who are very happy with their win rate but want to understand a bit more about the mechanics of the game and how the game works, right? So the question is, if you want to improve your win rate, or if you're starting, what's the best line to play, right? And the answer is, and by the way, this is going to be based on statistics, because I just don't like giving opinion all the time, because opinions are like arseholes. Everybody has one. We really need to address the question with facts and statistics, right? So getting a bit of help here from my mate Yilpa, who's again done some excellent research. We're going to go into his research a bit more in a different video, but for the purpose of this video, right, he's done some research by tank type across the different tiers from tier 5 upwards, right, which is when the tiers kind of split out into different tank types, right? And the overwhelming evidence is that heavy tanks outperform all other tank types. And by the way, that is also independent of your win rate, so of how your skill base. There are some possible exceptions, but basically heavy tanks outperform and have a much better win rate performance and across all skill types of players. Because if you're a good player, you're going to play better in a heavy tank. If you're not a good player, heavy tank is more forgiving, right? So therefore, if it's heavy tanks, what is the best line to play? So the answer is, well, the Russian line that leads up to the IS-4. Why is that? Well, we're going to go into that in a bit of detail too. But essentially, once we decide on heavy tanks, then you kind of need to have a look at, well, which line gives you the most ability to learn, to practice skills, but also to influence the game as well. Now, it was a close call between this and the German line, because German line is probably my favorite, but I had to put my emotions aside here and just look at things in the cold light of day. And the German line, once you get up to the heavy line, if you go up to E100, for example, you're talking about a really slow tank, and it has less influence on the game than, let's say, the IS-4, which is far more mobile. And the IS-4 has trollish armor for a tank with that mobility. It has decent gun handling. It's not as good as the German, of course, but it has decent enough gun handling. But overall, if you want a tank line that's firstly going to allow you to get better, to practice skills like side scraping, angling, all of these things, going front line, seizing the strategic positions on the map, all the things we talk about and how to play heavy tanks and their role in the game. And I'll put a link into that video here in case you haven't seen it or want to watch it again. The IS-4 line allows all of that as you go up. It also, when you get to tier 10, gives you much more options in the play. And that's why I slightly put ahead of the German heavies. Interestingly too, there's a sort of a dichotomy of change between the tanks as they move up. So the Russian tanks reload time goes down as they go up through the tiers, and the German tanks their reload time goes up. So basically the ability to influence the game, if you look on your ability or how frequently you fire shells, as a direct influence on the game, which it does. We've discussed that many times before, because there's strategic things you can do by firing shells, not just damage like tracking and even spotting, etc. Right? Then the IS-4 range, once you're up at tier 10, allows you that. But also on the journey along the way, you're going to be able to learn all the skills that are essential. We're having a look at some gameplay here. It's on Canal. And there's some of the characteristics of the IS-4 in play here, but also those that are with you throughout the line, that allow you to really influence the game and to have very good game, while at the same time it has, and this is characteristic of the whole line, that trollish armor which allows you to make mistakes. Because what you don't want to do in a game is be eliminated in the first minute or so. Now we'll go into all the different tank types, light tanks, medium tanks, etc. In the video I'm going to do on Yilpa's new research. However, suffice it to say that the research is pretty conclusive, with one or two exceptions by win rate across tiers. The heavy tanks outperform all other tank types. And this research is fascinating, by the way, so we'll have a look at that. Now, you saw here the bounce from the IS-4, from the Grill. Grill is a big gun, it's a German gun, it's really accurate gun, it has one of the best gun handling indexes in tier 10. But in a position like this, angling up front onto him, very difficult for him to pen the IS-4. And then, just put around it to him. Now, one of the things about the IS range, one of the drawbacks is that I'm firing AP in him, as you can see, as I get another bounce here. Why? Well, the gun handling on the Russian tanks is far inferior to German tanks. If it was in a German heavy tank here, I would fire HE in them. But oftentimes, HE can give you low rolls, even against something like a Grill. So what I'm doing here is I'm guaranteeing my points because I don't really want to mess around. But when I really need to clear them off, I switch up to HE, take careful aim, and I'm able to get big roll and clear them off. Now, if you're in E100 or something in this game, you wouldn't be able to get to A and influence the game so much because you'd probably still be on your way to A, right? Although the Jagdpanzer has arrived, but he arrived much later than me. But he's still able to help me out, and we've cleared off the Grill, and we're going to clear off the T-57 Heavy. And actually going to this point on Canal in something like an IS-4 is always a good idea, because oftentimes, and I do it myself, something like a Grill or that will try to get up there, capture A, and then sit at the back of the map and snipe. And if you look at my TD games, several of them, the mastery games I put up in TDs, have been doing that tactic. But if you're in something like an IS-4 or an IS-7, then you can get up there at the same time as those guys, and you out-armor them, outshoot them, and basically you can capture that key point of the map. Now, the question might be, well, would the IS-7 be also good armored? Yes, it would. But the IS-7 is not as forgiving as the IS-4 because we know it's a fucking rolling ammo rack, right? And actually, in a couple of my recent videos, you've seen me ammo rack them. There's that sweet spot right on the front of them as well. And you've seen me do it a few times where you can't, obviously you can't say you're going to ammo rack them because that's RNG, but you've definitely a very good chance of ammo racking them, right? They must be one of the most ammo rack tanks in the game. So, in terms of forgiveness and your ability to influence games, the IS-4 has that edge. As I said, for a tank of its mobility and rate of fire and its armor is trollish. It's probably the best balance in terms of, or allowed to say, best payoff in terms of mobility and fire and rate of fire to armor in the game, I would say. And you can do things like this. I mean, look at me moving back and forward here, almost like a medium tank. Couldn't do that in an E100, for example. I'm not saying the E100 or the VKs are not good. I love my German tanks. As I said, it's probably my favourite range. But I'm trying to put emotions aside so that we can just talk about this, what's best for the average player. And, the statistics by Yilpa show heavy tanks for sure. And then the question is which. And for the reasons that we've just spoken about, I'm just saying it's the IS. I mean, look in this game here, almost 4k damage done, almost 2k damage blocked. And I've also contributed to another 3.2k damage through my actions of spotting, etc. That's some achievement, right? If you add all that together, you're talking about over 9k either direct or indirect contribution to the game in net damage, which, even though this is tier 10, that's still an amazing contribution. And you can see I've hardly had a glove laid on me throughout the game. And that's why I would recommend the IS-4 range for anybody who is starting and thinking about what is the best line for me to learn the game, practice key skills, and also, have the most forgiving tanks that will allow me to make mistakes. If you want to improve your win rate, if you haven't started this line, go and do it. And if you already have it, go back and play it more, because statistically, and I'm going to put a link into the analysis done by Yilpa, by the way, heavy tanks every time are going to give you a better win rate. So that in essence, I think, explains why this is the best range to go for in the game. All things being equal, of course. It's not the most fun range, of course not. Light tanks are the most fun, but they're also the ones that have the lowest win rate by player because they're the least forgiving. They're my favourite type of tank to play. I think they influence the game more than any other tank type. But you'd have to have a very high skill level to play them, or experience level. And even then, they still have a lower win rate. And that's statistics, it's not just my opinion. And if you look at the link from Yippa, you will see that. So guys, hope you found it useful. I hope you found this enjoyable. I hope that you will heed this and that will help you enjoy your Blitz experience more and become better players. And now I guess all remains for me to say is, as always, pants off.